Hello, welcome to this video on Johansson reading number 11. As with the previous one, this reading 11 is split into two separate sections. I'll read them straight through and then we'll analyze them straight through. Let me call up the text. There we are. Chayima bhikkhave sanya, rupa sanya, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, puttabha sanya, dhamma sanya. And again, chayima bhikkhave sanya, rupa sanya, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, puttabha sanya, dhamma sanya. Cha meaning six. Ima is the feminine plural from yam, this. So the chayima, the y is euphonically inserted. It is cha-ima, just becomes chayima. In fact, what I'll do, I shall insert a hyphen here to show you. It's an inserted, euphonically inserted. Chayima bhikkhave sanya. There are these six, O monks, sanya, perceptions, meaning categories of perception or types of perception. And the word sanya cognate with our cognition. It's the root nya, so to know, and in Sanskrit, sanya that's a noun. In fact, there's the sanya as a verb, sanjanati, and also makes the noun sanya, meaning a perception. And it's the noun that by regular phonetic mutation becomes sanya in Pali. The sum has rather the same force as the Latin con here, as in cognoscere, cognition, not just knowing in the sense of perceiving something, but achieving something by knowing it. It's like an identification. It's a cognition, not just having the sensation, but perceiving it to be something as opposed to another thing. So there are these six types of perceptions or cognitions. We have now the rupa, form, rupa sanya, literally form perception, so perception of form. Saddha sanya is the perception of sounds. Saddha is the Sanskrit word shabda, Pali saddha. For example, saddhaniti, like a grammar, shabdaniti, leading, governance, grammar. Saddhaniti, word leading is grammar. Saddha sanya, gandha sanya, gandha is an odor. And in fact, Gandhi, as in Mahatma Gandhi, is one who deals in perfumes. It means a perfumier. Gandhi. Gandha sanya, perception of smells. Rasa sanya, perception of tastes. Rasa is the taste. Puttabha sanya, perception of tangibles. We have the Sanskrit root sprish, meaning to touch. It's a sixth class verb, so it makes sprishati. In Pali, it has three forms of the present. You can have pasati and pusati with a double S rather, and pusati. All of these forms are permissible in Pali. And it makes its gerundive, the to be touched or touchable, with its tavya, so the sprish becomes sprash. In Sanskrit, sprash tavya, so touchable, which becomes in Pali puttabba. Now this gerundive, it doesn't mean requiring to be touched, it just has the meaning of touchable, that it is touched, capable of being touched. So a tactile thing or a sensation. So the puttabba sanya is the perceptible of tangibles, that's the feeling of touch on the body. And the dhamma sanya, this polysemic, this word of wide-ranging meanings, dhamma sanya, in this context, dhamma sanya means perception of anything that's not one of the five physical senses. So in this context, it's perception of mental phenomena. We'll move now on to reading the second part, Majjhima Nikaya 4. Sanjanati tiko avuso tasma sanyati vucchati. Kincha sanjanati Nilakampi sanjanati Pitakampi sanjanati Lohitakampi sanjanati Udatampi sanjanati. Sanjanati. Sanjanati tiko avusu tasma sanyati muchati. When you're discussing a word and what the meaning of the word is, you often see this in the Buddhist scriptures. It's as if saying, now, this word sanjanati, let's talk about it. This word sanjanati, what does it mean? You're saying something about it. It's the topic of your discussion. Very often, that word will be repeated and followed by a ti. And that's in here, sanjanati, sanjanati iti. And that will usually indicate that you're talking about the word and that you're using the word sanjanati not as a verb in a sentence or any other word in a sentence, but you're identifying the fact that you are discussing this word. This word forms the topic of your discussion. So sanjanati, he perceives, or it perceives, thus, or that is why, tasma sanyati vucchati. Tasma, you see, sanyati, that is why it is called sanya. So we could even put, to use our punctuation, tasma, that's the ablative, literally from that, which means thence, for that reason, that's why. Vucchati, it is called, or it is said, sanyati, that's why it's called sanya. One perceives, that's why it's called perception. And when you're saying that is why it is called perception, this ti, it's the Sanskrit iti, like end quote, you also use this ti, end quote, not only when you're quoting what somebody has said, but when you're quoting a word. That's why it is called, quote, perception, unquote. So ti is used in that sense as well. So if you said tasma sanya vucchati, it wouldn't, you'd feel there was something missing. Tasma sanyati vucchati. That's why it's called perception. So kincha sanjanati. Kincha and what? Kincha sanjanati. And what does one perceive? Look at this kincha. You could write that in two ways. Kimcha. Kim what? Cha is and. And what? With the enclitic particles like cha and pi, they're very often joined to the preceding word as if part of the same word. So that becomes kincha. They're both pronounced the same anyway, kincha. It could be written either way, both are equally correct. There's no distinction of meaning between them. So kincha and what? Kincha sanjanati. And what does he perceive? Now, just as with the cha being joined to the kim, to make this one with kimcha, this nilakampi could equally be written nilakam with anuswara, or joined as part of the same word. You see where I've done a note on that. Nilakampi or nilakampi, both pronounced the same, but they can be written differently. Here, the p is joined as if it's part of the same word, part of a single word, and therefore the is no longer anuswara. It has full consonantal status, as it were, nilakampi. It's just a convention of writing. It doesn't affect the meaning in any way. Both are equally correct. Neither is to be recommended, one over the other. So nilaka is blue. So nilakam pi, one perceives blue. When you get a list of things, as here, you could put cha or pi. Pi sometimes means even. Also, it can be used in place of and. You could put Nilakancha Sanjanati, Pitakancha Sanjanati, and so on. Nilakampi Sanjanati, Pitakampi Sanjanati, and so on. They mean about the same thing. So one perceives blue, Nilakam. Pitaka is yellow, so Pitakampi Sanjanati, one perceives yellow. Lohitakampi Sanjanati, one perceives red. Typo that. Udatampi sanjanati, one perceives white. Udata actually means washed. In Sanskrit would be avadata, with the ava becoming softened to o, as very frequently happened. One crosses down or crosses over, goes down into the water. Sanskrit avatarati, down crosses. In Pali it becomes otarati. Lohita and Rohita, from real root rud, cognate with our English red and ruddy. The older form would be Rohita, but you will see Lohita. I don't know which is more common. They're both correct. Lohitampi sanjanati, udatampi sanjanati. Udata, from Sanskrit avadai, avadata, cleansed, and the meaning white. It's the idea of washed cotton coming out as pure white. That's where you get the washed meaning white. So I will read both texts through again. So did I think I forgot to share my iPad screen with you. I do apologize for that. Here we are. Yeah, sorry, we were talking about jñā, sanjñā. So the Sanskrit, sorry, make that correctly, jñā. Cognition and shabda, gandha, gandhi. Sprish, sprishati, passati, pussati, and pussati. All three forms exist in Pali for the present tense. Sprashtavya, puttabba, and the two forms of kincha. So fortunately, not too much was missed by my error in failing to show you the iPad screen. So I'll go back and read it to you again. Here we are. Chaima bhikkhave sanya, rupa sanya, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, puttabha sanya, dhamma sanya. And the second section. Sanjanati sanjanati tiko avuso tasma sanyati uchati. Kincha sanjanati. Nilakampi sanjanati. Pitakampi sanjanati. Lohitakampi sanjanati. Odatampi sanjanati. And that concludes this reading 11.